So back in college, I was in a circus club, doing handstands and shit like that. And when I graduated, I wanted to keep on training. And since I know how to weld, I went and built myself a trapeze rig in my backyard. Just stuff people do. And I set it up in the summer, which lets me train stuff like, aerial straps and silks and rope and all that jazz. But I won't be showing that today. What I want to show instead is this rope ladder that I use to hang the apparatus up. Because the rig itself, it's way overbuilt and weighs like 500 pounds. It's a pain in the ass to break down and set up again. So I just leave that up all summer long. But the equipment I hang from it does come down. And that's where the rope ladder comes in handy. So this is tied 100% out of rope. It's a knot I learned back at scout camp probably 15 years ago or so. And it was interesting enough and simple enough that I bothered to remember it even this much later. And I did go around on YouTube and look for other videos showing this and managed to find one, which I will link down below. But I'm still going to shoot my own video because I think I have some tips that'll help you get it tied maybe a little bit faster and maybe help you get the size that you want. Because, this is a very long knot to tie, and if you don't get the spacing of things right, you might end up with a ladder either shorter or longer than you desire. Let's see. I guess before we get into it though, I do have a few safety tips. Nothing too much because I'm woefully unqualified to talk about safety, but a few pointers. So first off, don't do as I say, nor as I do. Do what you want, just don't sue. Okay? Obviously, when you're climbing up 18 feet in the air, that can be a little bit dangerous. So, take responsibility for yourself, be smart, and be safe. All right? Secondly, you do want to make sure you get the right kind of rope. If you just go to Home Depot and buy whatever rope they sell there, that will not work because you need a rope that's stiff enough to form a rung like this. Okay, the Home Depot stuff will just collapse and it will stretch and it will snap when you try to climb it, and that's no good. Okay, so you need to get a real climbing rope, a static climbing line, not dynamic, but a static climbing line, about a ½ inch in diameter and probably about 100 feet of it. This here was about 100 feet and it gave me a rope ladder about 14 feet long at the end. For an 18-foot tall rig. So these knots here do take up a lot of rope, but it's interesting and cool, and in my opinion, it's very easy to climb. Now, as for how you do climb it, okay, the third thing, you don't climb it like a regular ladder. Okay, you don't come in from the front and grab a rung and put your foot on a rung like this, because that just pushes it away from you. So instead, think about climbing it, kind of hugging it like a koala bear. Okay, so you come around the back here, and then grab the rung, and then your foot comes and heel hooks from around the back as well. And then if you get your other foot in, you can hang all the way back, and it's still very secure, okay? And if you stay nice and vertical, and always keep 3 to 4 appendages on the ladder, it's very easy to climb up. So, you move one hand up, then you move the other hand up, and then leg and leg, right? But always keep 3 points of contact on the ladder, and keep grabbing around from the back so the ladder instead gets pulled in towards you as opposed to being pushed away. The fourth thing is you do not want to keep the rope ladder hanging up all the time. I have a means of getting it up there when I'm ready to climb up and hang up other apparatus, but do not leave this outside in the sun 24/7. Otherwise the UV and the rain and everything will make the rope get weathered and wear it out faster and possibly make it stretch or even snap and fail. So take that down because this stuff will wear out more when left in the sun. First, let's do a little sketch so we can kind of walk through the steps of tying the rope and figuring out roughly how long it's going to be once we finish the knot. Okay, so at the very top, we're going to put a loop for a carabiner. And in my case, I'm going to do a double loop with a double alpine knot. It's this guy right here. Now, I'm not going to show the instructions for tying this one because there's plenty of other tutorials that go through it already. My favorite tutorials have got to be on animatedknots.com, the site formerly known as Knots by Grog. I have no idea who Grog is, but he's the man when it comes to knot tutorials. His very clear step-by-step instructions with photos of every part. So I'll put the link to his tutorial below, and you can follow along there. I will say the double alpine is a little bit tricky to dress nicely, to get all the ropes, kind of sitting evenly and smoothly, but with some finagling, you should be able to get it to work. An alternative you could try is the double bowline, which is also available on Animated Knots, but that one isn't as symmetric, and I think just the symmetric one is a bit nicer for this application. Another tip that will help with tying this is to mark off the midpoint of your rope with a piece of electrical tape, like I did right here, and then go about 3 or 4 feet away from that and mark with another piece of tape on both ends. I've already taken that tape off, but basically when you have that second piece of tape and you tie your double alpine, it makes it easier to make sure that both legs end up still the same length. Because your tape is not lined up anymore, you can adjust the legs until the tape out here is still lined up. And then you can also measure to see how much of the rope you used up in your double alpine. Now I know in my case, I used up 4 feet in this little knot, and that will come in handy to know when you start trying to figure out how long to put the ladder in general. So that goes to the top. Then we have to have a bit of a triangle coming down the first rung. And then we're going to have each successive rung after that. First rung and then straights to each next rung. Now you can see we're doing the picture here because I can use 2 colors and hopefully make it a bit easier for you to see what's going on. Now this knot is basically 2 different parts, one on each tail, and they alternate on each rung. So the left side is always going to do a couple of turns. So 1, 2, 3, and then down. And then the right side is going to come through this first one, over this bottom rope, and then come around the back and start doing spirals, okay, and loop around it. And at the very end, it's going to come over that one, and then through this loop here, and then down. Okay, so what this does is it gives us 3 turns here that kind of form the middle of the rung. And then the loops around it give it some bulk and then make it more rigid. And then you can pull these loops through and tight. And as you cinch this first pass here up, that will lock in the turning rope on this end here. And as you cinch this second turn here up, that'll lock it on this end. Bring this in closer, make sure you can see that. Okay? And then on the next step, we basically just reverse it. So again, the left side is going to be doing your turns, but now that's the other end of the rope. And then the right side is going to come through this, over this, and then do the turns. And then over this, through this, and down. Okay, so you can see these are, obviously going to take different amounts of rope on each pass too. And it's been a while since I tied this, but I did take some notes way back then, and I did a little bit of practice with it today to hopefully get it in the right ballpark. And it seems that for my rope, which in case I haven't mentioned already, this is a 12 millimeter diameter static climbing rope, 100 feet in length. Okay, a very long rope. There's a lot of rope here. For this 12 millimeter rope, if you do 11 passes, that'll give you a rung about 6 inches wide. Okay, and it'll take about 20 inches and 50 inches of rope for each different part of the tail. So you think 12 millimeters wide, you do 11 turns. 12 mil is basically half an inch, so 11 turns is 5.5 inches. And the rung ends up about 6 because knots aren't perfectly compact. It kind of makes sense. And then we're doing 3 turns around here on a 6-inch rung. That's about 18, so it comes out to using about 20. That also seems about correct. And then these loops here, they just take a lot because you're going around, if you get 3 pieces of rope here, that's a lot to wrap around, and you're doing 11 passes of that. And when I'm counting out this 11, what I'm doing here is I'm saying when it passes through this the first time, that's 0, and then we do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and then 11 is where it passes through this. Okay, that's how I'm counting it out. Now with this using, let's see, 20 plus 50 inches of rope in every rung, that's about 6 feet. Okay, now I'm overestimating this on purpose, okay, and kind of get to that in a little bit. So I have 100 feet of rope. I know I used 4 for the double alpine. That leaves us with 96. I think it'd be kind of nice to have 12 rungs. The last time I did it, I had 11, but they were spaced out too far. So if I do it with 12 rungs, that means there's 72 feet of rope used up in the rungs, leaving us with 24 feet left over. So then we can give it a 12-inch drop on each of these, and that should come out just about perfect. Now, since these rungs don't take a full 6 feet, and I'm kind of overestimating there, that means we'll have a little bit of rope left over. And that's okay, because it gives us space to put either like a stopper knot at the end, or to possibly just tie together the rope at the very end to form a loose loop that isn't really a full rung, but it's just a good starter loop to get a foot in and get yourself climbing up the rope. Because here, with 12 rungs, and this space here being 12 inches, and each rung being about 2 inches wide, that will make the whole ladder, 12 by a foot each, that's 12 feet, plus 12 by 2 inches each, that's another 2 feet. So about 14 feet in total length of the ladder. Now I did the last one with only 11 rungs. That meant I had a lot more rope left to increase the gap between each rung, and it made it just excessively long. My rig is only 18 feet tall, and you don't need a full 18-foot rope ladder, since it's going from the very top to the very ground. And you can do at least a step, the first step can be a little bit off the ground because you're already standing on the dirt. And for me, having like that 15-inch gap between each rung was fine because I'm 6'1". But for my friends who, are, shorter, and even some who are like only 4'11", that can be much harder to climb for them. So I'm going to make this shorter to see if I can get it, to be more compact, but still be long enough to be useful on the rig. Right. So if we have 14 feet from the top of this point to the bottom of the last rung, then we got, maybe another 8 inches here on the double alpine. And then we've got the fact that this is not going to be at the very top of the rig either. The top post of the rig is not going to be right there. It's going to be a little bit up still. And there's going to be a rope coming down and the carabiner that attach it to the rig. So I think overall with a 12-inch spacing, it should turn out to be about the right size. And if not, we'll find out at the end. Now, let's see. I guess you could also, you can also make it fewer turns around here if you need more length, right? Because again, each of these turns gets pretty expensive in terms of rope. But when you do that, you get a more narrow rung. And I think 6 inches is pretty good just for typical size hands and feet. You don't want to make it wider than that. If you make it like 9 inches wide by doing a whole lot of turns, not only will that waste a crap ton of rope, but it'll also make the rung more likely to buckle just because it'll be so long that even a tightly packed rope won't be strong enough to really just maintain its rigidity. Not that there's anything wrong with that. It's just more comfortable if it sits straight. And if you do make it more narrow, that could be uncomfortable for people with like big clown feet. And given that we are doing this for a trapeze rig, the odds of someone having clown feet on it is, unusually high. Oh, bad jokes, bad jokes. Anyway, with that, onto the actual rope. The second reason I wanted to explain with that drawing first is that we're actually going to tie the knot a little bit differently from how I drew it. The reason for that is it's very easy to do 11 turns around each rung when you're working with pen and paper. But when you have 50 feet of rope hanging off each end, it's a bit more difficult. So rather than doing the 3 runs and then 11 wraps around that, we're going to do 11 wraps around this pipe and then run the rope 3 times back and forth through the runs the turns we've already made. So that's the pipe is for. And we have this board here with the nails popped in it to help us get an even spacing from rung to rung. So starting on the right hand side, you come over the pipe and then back around. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. As the rope here gets all twisted up behind you, just kind of work that out. Give it a few flicks, keep it out of your way. You know, behind you, you can even pass it over the other side of you where it belongs now. And now for the left hand leg, we take this one end, pass it to the pipe, and once it gets through, we can pull the pipe out with it and put that aside. We can't leave the pipe in the whole time as you go back and forth, otherwise you just get locked into the knot, and that is obviously no good. So with this through once, keep track of where the end is, and then just throw the rest of this through here as quickly as possible. So to give yourself some room to work, either on a very large table or on the floor or whatever, just give yourself room so you can toss the excess rope through. It does make things a lot faster. And as for the lengths of these legs here, we'll figure that out in a little bit. Now in the second pass back, we want to make sure we capture this part of the rope. So coming underneath it now and staying beside and just beneath that first pass through. And make sure you come all the way out behind this. Keep track of the end. And again, just feed all that rope back through. It does look messy now, but trust me, it will clean up in just a little bit. Okay, now on the third pass through, we want to capture this leg coming down. So we're going to go over it now. And then again, alongside and underneath the past two runs we just did. Now when it comes to this last one here, we want to make sure that we pass through that as well. So don't cut it short and come out like this, okay? Because you want to come through here. And I can show you that better in just a minute. So to help everything lock together at the end of this rung. Again, working out the twists in there. Good. That whole piece of rope is on that side. And this whole part is on this side now. Good. So now I can work out some of the excess in these turns. Just kind of pushing that along the route. All the way to the end. And then drawing it through. Okay, so now you can kind of see how this suddenly came together, right? And at the end, I was talking about making sure you come through here. And so this rope here comes, it's caught by that first pass through the first loop, right? So you're doing the 11 turns, you come through the first one, and then down, back, and under this guy for the 11 passes. And what that does is when you cinch this up, that will lock in this rope, and you cinch the loop up, that'll lock in this part, and then likewise on this side, we've got this loop here, this one here, and then this one here, locking in these sides as well. So it kind of locks in both ropes on both ends. And if you miss this, and instead you cut down past here, you kind of miss the last bit that helps lock in this opposite side loop. I hope that makes sense. Anyway, now that we've got this formed pretty much all the way, we're going to take some time and get all the lengths correct and the spacing where we want it. So I'm going to try to make a medium-sized triangle at the top. You do need both the triangle and the loop at the middle of it. If you just have a triangle without this double alpine knot or any sort of loop at all, then that will risk kicking over to either side as you climb the ladder. If you put like your weight on unevenly, that will possibly slip. So you do need a loop in there to put your carabiner to make sure that the carabiner stays in the middle of the ladder. Pull this through. Hang down the nail for a sec. And then just work all this extra down the row of twists. Okay. I'm twisting this like you're wringing out a wet towel, and that helps draw all the excess to one end. Okay, still kind of long on this side, so pull some more up here. Again, keep on drawing that to the far end. And then it comes time to finally cinch this down tight. You can use, whatever excess is left and pull that to either this leg, or the two legs below it to help get things lined up more evenly. Okay, I'm going to make that a little bit shorter because I know when I pull this all taut, I'm going to manage to get a bit more out right there. Pull that tight. There we go. So where are we at? Bit of extra twist in the rung. Dress that correctly. There we go. Looking like this one is a little bit shorter, so you can still pull a little bit out of here, but then draws tight this loop. And now that looks just about perfect and about the size we want. Good. So pull hard on this one, draw any extra slack out of here, and then get that mostly all the way tight. Twist out any remaining slack in the rungs. Push that down to the end, and then crank on this to draw that taut as well. And that is the first rung. The second rung is pretty much the same thing, only now we have the nails up here to help us get the spacing correct. So again, working the right hand side, which was formerly the left hand side. Come over the top, around the back, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Work all that out. 8, 9, 10, 11. Pass this whole rope over to my other side. And now, starting with the end of the rope, feed it through for the first of the 3 runs. Okay. I can almost guarantee there's going to be a lot of twists in this one from having done all 11 turns last time. Yep. So you want to take a minute to, you know, get rid of all those after you do each rung. There's no knots in here right now, just twisting the rope from doing the last turns on the PVC pipe that are making the rope kind of bunch up on itself. There we go. Take all this now. Now in this second pass back, remember we come on the other side to capture this leg and try and stay alongside and underneath the first rung. The reason for that being, if we come above it instead, that just won't dress properly when it's all squared up. In fact, on this first rung here, even that's a little bit of a shoddy job, but you can kind of see the this first one coming down kind of goes in between the other 2 there, or ideally be just above. But it's close enough, it'll still work. Try to do a neater job on this second rung here. Okay, now the last pass back, we capture this leg coming down and then go through all the other 11 turns. Including the very last one that we caught with the first bend around. And now this mess should look very similar, but as you know, in just a minute, it'll clean up. Okay. Again, working the excess in these twists from my right to my left. Then pulling that down and away. Okay. So see, this time we have this first one coming down on top. That comes out to here. And then this is the second. And then this is the third. So we kind of have it, yeah, have that near the bottom. All right. Now to work on the spacing from rung to rung. I dip these nails a little bit less than the target 12 inches. They're like 11 inches apart or so. And that way I have a bit more room to work, but I still have a pretty decent visual guide. There we go. So you pull a lot of slack out of this side. And just push that down to the end. That's all the way through. Now that has us close, but I know as we cinch this up, there'll still be a lot more to go. Now, as for cinching up these rungs here in the middle, one thing you can do is twist to kind of compress the whole thing, and then once you've got that, take advantage of that and work the slack again to whichever end you need. And that might be either the end going to the next rung, or possibly even, the end going to the prior rung, if you need to make that a little bit longer. Okay, so now I feel like if I pull this loop pretty tight by pulling on the opposite side, when I go to squeeze out the last bit from there, yep, that'll have me right about where I want to be. Then I'd pull that out there. Yep, it's looking pretty good now. So, squeeze all the excess out of these turns, so the rung ends up being nice and stiff. Pull this. Not all the way tight yet, but enough that it won't lose our progress as we come back for one more feel on here. Just an extra ½ inch I found. Good. And now, pull that all the way. And that is the second rung. And once you put some weight on this, and the rest of whatever little slack in here does pull out, this will stretch out to the desired 12 inches. So that's 2, only 10 more to go. So it does take some time, right? But as you go, it does get faster because you have less rope behind you to deal with, and you've also got more practice, right? Like, I haven't done this knot in a long time. So, just as you get through all 12 rungs, you'll get a bit faster each time. Just put on some music you like, or TV show, comedian, whatever, and have fun and have at it. And here's the rest of it. Took about 90 minutes to tie the remaining 10 rungs, so it definitely is pretty involved, but I think it turned out pretty nicely. I miscalculated a little bit on the amount of rope that'd be left over. Down here on this last rung, I only got 8 turns in, and then have like a couple inches left in the tail. Not even enough to get an overhand stopper knot in there, but I think it'll be fine. I kind of wished I would have had enough rope for a full, 11 turn rung, and then maybe another 1.5 feet at the end of that. Then I could tie those 1.5 feet ends together and give just a loose single strand rung at the bottom, kind of as a starter to help you get on the thing, since this one here is much shorter than the last rope ladder I tied. This one is clocking in at just below 14 feet. Under gentle tension. I'm sure once I'm standing on it, my weight will draw it taut and it'll be about 14 feet long. And then as the knots tighten up, it'll be a little bit longer still. For comparison, the last one was more like 17 feet long with 11 rungs, and that wide spacing is what made it so hard for my shorter friends to be able to climb it. So, with any luck, this will work out better. Now, to give you an overview of how this turned out. As you can see, roughly what spacing I kept. And the kettlebells here are just paperweights to hold it taut. That's really all kettlebells are good for, but anyway. So you can see roughly what spacing I got. Maybe try to mimic it yourself or make adjustments, you know, for whatever will fit your needs and the length of your rope. Again, this is a 100-foot rope, but now that I think about it, it might be like 2 or 3 feet short. Can't remember if I cut a chunk off this rope or another one for another silly little project I had a while back. So I might be, you know, selling myself short just a little bit here. But anyway, as I continue using this, I will keep on updating the description below of this video to let you know how it stretches out and if it's easy to climb and all that stuff for my 18-foot tall rig. If anyone else does go through the process of tying this knot and wants to comment and say what distances and measurements you got, that'd be great too. And with that, I think we're done.